Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Football.
Welcome into Purple Access, Zulgad, Chip Scoggins, every other week, of course, Purple Access. Chip joins us. And Ross Brendel at the controls today of this fine show, which is sponsored by our friends at Livia Weight Control Centers. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a program that works. And here's the good news. Olivia's Black Friday offer has been extended. Join today. You're going to save up to 50%. Visit Livia.com. That's Livea.com or call 855-GO-LIVEA. A limited time offer, so join now. Again, 50% off. Livia.com. Livia voted Minnesota's best weight loss program 3 years in a row. Chip Scoggins, what's going on? Happy bye week. Chip, I think you're muted.
Am I muted? Am I there?
Now you're not muted.
You are unmuted now. You're good to go.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'm enjoying the bye week. What are you doing? You're not taking a week off? Are you self-scouting?
I'm self-scouting. There's never, you know what? Kevin O'Connell doesn't take the week off. Kevin O'Connell, his wife and kids said, okay, oh, come on, Kevin, you're off this week. He said, no, I got to choose a quarterback. I got to choose
quarterback problems.
Time off.
Quarterback problems.
Time off is for those who don't want to win. I want to win. I want us to be on top, and I want the Vikings to be. So give me your thoughts. I've basically said from what O'Connell said Monday and then really Tuesday, Josh Dobbs ain't starting December 10th against the Raiders. What do you think?
Yeah, the turnovers are alarming, and I don't know that O'Connell has any more patience for him.
Yep. You
could tell he was exasperated the other night after game, as he should be. Mm-hmm. It was 4, and it could have been easily 5 with the pick 6 and maybe another. It was a great story while it lasted, but unless O'Connell uses this bye week, which I don't think is even possible, but unless he uses bye week to really tinker with the system and try to craft it more around what Dobbs does and his running ability, I think he will probably go back to picking a quarterback who knows the system so they don't have to have so much adjustments. My hunch would be I would want to see Jaren Hall because he's a rookie, and what we saw in, 2 drives in Atlanta?
Yep.
Made you want to see a little bit more, but my guess is they'll go with Nick Mullens because he's the veteran and typically coaches side on the veteran in these situations. And had he not gotten hurt, he would have been the guy in Atlanta. So if you're doing process of elimination, I'm guessing it's going to be Mullens when they pick back up.
Which is the least sexy of all the choices, but I agree completely. And look, I mean, Mullens has fumbled the football and he's throwing picks, so he is certainly not perfect. But this team, like it or not, is going to compete for a playoff spot, and they're right now still in the 7th and final seed in the conference. And so I'm with you. I think that they're going to play it as safe as possible. And I think the fact that Dobbs turned over the ball 6 times in 2 games is enough for them not to now go back to the drawing board. I voiced this after the game on Monday, and I'm not the first one or the last one. I was a little bit surprised by the game plan. I mean, Dobbs rushed 2 times. They tried to make him a passer. Now, going through O'Connell's press conference on Tuesday, it sounds like he said, well, the Bears changed some things and were intent on stopping Dobbs, and so we had to sort of take a different tact. What did you think of that whole thing? Because it was a terrible football game, but there were some odd storylines that I think are worth exploring.
Yeah, it's almost, and I don't know how much of it, and I think Denver did this to a degree too, is don't let him get outside the pocket and move around and make things happen like we saw his first 2 games. And so they almost became content with making him a pocket passer, and that's not what he does well. You thought there might be more designed calls to get him on the edge, maybe even design runs. I thought a design run on when they got the ball back there at 3:28 after the fumble and they're up 10-9. I thought instead of running Madison up the gut 2 straight times, why not try something creative with Dobbs's feet? So how much is that the way the Bears defended him? I'm sure it had something to do with it. I mean, because teams are not dumb. They're like, this guy can beat you if he's out and freelancing and on the run. So I just, I listened to O'Connell. I can't remember if it was after the game or Tuesday, but he's talking about the timing and the footwork and all the different things that he's basically saying these quarterbacks that we've had have been drilled on this day after day, week after week, month after month. And now you're asking Dobbs to do it on the fly in real time. And so I think as he kind of sits back now that he's healthy and or without Cousins, but the other guys are healthy, I think he'll just say, let's go with the guys that we've been coaching for 3 years or 2 years or however long they've been here. And the upside might not be as high as what you would get with Dobbs.
Right.
But the turnovers you can't live with. And I wonder too, if O'Connell's just saying, there's just so much he doesn't know about how they do it in the system, and they're trying to piece this together, that especially if you're having turnovers, it's easy to make the change. So, how the thing I don't know is, and I assume it's pretty complicated to really change what you do fundamentally schematically to fit your quarterback when everybody else is used to something else. This is it. It's not like they have an off season to do this. This is trying to do it in practice time in a couple days or even a couple weeks. So it's not realistic.
How much has your opinion, if it has, changed of Kirk Cousins and the opportunity and the chance of him coming back now, keeping in mind that they could draft a QB as well? But has your thought process on Kirk changed now that we've seen a 4 games sample size of a backup who started off great, and obviously the past 2 games has struggled way more?
Well, as much as we all got caught up in the euphoria of what he did those first,
it was a great story.
We're seeing why Dobbs has been with 7 teams. So I don't think anybody thought he was going to come in here and match what Kirk Cousins did or replace Kirk Cousins, because that's fantasy land. But I don't know. It clearly shows you how good Cousins was this year and the level that he was playing and the trust that he had from the coaching staff and fans that he's going to play at a high level. I don't know that it changes the organizational thinking of, it would be nice to have mobility in that, because we saw glimpses of what that can do. Now, I'm not talking about a running quarterback, but I'm just talking about someone who, has that part to their game, which Kirk doesn't. He does other things really, really well. So, But again, Judd, do I think they would like to bring him back? Yes. But what's the cost?
Right.
As Kwesi said, it's a negotiation. So it's all going to come down to what his side wants in terms of what their demands are for the salary.
Cost and security as well. Like what's the term? And you know what? He's never played in his life in the National Football League, Chipper. He's never played with his replacement, especially here, behind him. And so if they draft a guy and they sign him and they say, Kirk, we'll do 1 year, because he's 30. He's going to be 36 next summer. He's coming off an Achilles, and I don't care what's going on with the Jets and Rodgers. An Achilles is a big deal, especially at that age. And so there's just so many questions here. I do have one for you on O'Connell as well. 2 years in now, and he clearly has some really good attributes as a coach. I think we all agree that the Vikings appear to have gotten this hire right. What is your opinion of O'Connell as a play caller? Because I have vacillated on this one, and just to be very clear, I know it's a really tough job, so I'm not saying, well, I'd like to do it. I would have no interest. But what's your opinion?
I think he's a great play caller when he trusts his quarterback. Right? We've seen him when Kirk was in there. We saw creativity. We saw, I think, probably more aggressiveness, more comfort calling things. I go back to, 3 situations, the end of both halves at Denver, where he was content to play for a field goal because I just don't think he trusts Dobbs not to turn the ball over. Happened again the other night when they get it. Was it the 43 or whatever it was on the fumble recovery? 328, you're up. You need what? 8 yards, 9, whatever it was to get a first down.
Yes.
And he was more concerned with, now he was trusting his defense and the way they were looking against Justin Fields. I get it. But if Cousins would have been in that situation, I don't think they would have run it up the middle 2 straight times. Because I just think the 4 turnovers scared him. And
Oh,
he
they
didn't want
definitely
to get he didn't want to get in that situation again. So I think a lot of it's dependent on who his quarterback is. And you'd probably say that for a lot of coaches. But we've seen the conservative side of him come out to try to manage a game and not make a mistake and hope it and put it on his defense. And no matter who you're playing, like Russell Wilson, he can turn into Russell Wilson. As bad as Justin Fields looked the other night and throwing a million screen. I wish my family loved me as much as the Bears love screen passes. As much screen passes that they threw. If you
certainly pay enough in college tuition, you should be loved.
That's right. I don't care who it is. If you leave the door open, you're susceptible to that.
Here's what I don't get about O'Connell. A couple things, at least. 4th and 1 in Denver, midfield approximately. You don't go for it. 4th and 7 in Minnesota against the Bears, midfield approximately. You go for it. And I guess my philosophical question is, what's your philosophy there? That one threw me because I don't it's not that I like disagree strongly with the 4th and 7 going for it, but why wouldn't you have done that in Denver?
I think this one, the Bears one, because 4th and 7 are like, we're all like, he's going for this? You thought it for sure was going to be a punt. That was a total, they didn't think the Bears were going to do anything with that offense and Justin Fields. I mean, if you don't get it, okay, the defense is going to stop him. The other one, I don't know why he didn't go for that one.
Right. I trusted my defense there.
In Denver, particularly the way they were running the ball in the first half against Denver.
Yes.
That one made no sense to me. So that's where the last 2 weeks, particularly, now maybe there's been other cases where he's been conservative, but the last 2 weeks have really, probably because they've lost those games and they've come back to cost them. But those two, the last 2 games in particular really stood out of, man, he's become conservative in those situations.
And here's here's what I think is the most interesting thing about that statement, which I do agree with. And it's a season-long problem. And I think it is his biggest blind spot as a play caller. And it's this. And again, I'm not saying I could do this. I don't know how, but I know it when I see it. I think he really struggles to use a football cliche, marry the run and the pass game. They always look like they're getting divorced.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
They're always pulling away from each other instead of that perfect synergy that some teams get, where it's like, oh yeah, of course you did that. You know, play calling is among those things in sports where when it's done well, you're like, oh, of course he did that. Yeah, of course, that's easy. Well, no, it's not. But I always feel like the run game is the unwanted stepchild of this whole thing.
Yeah, it's an art form when you're doing it at a high level. And don't you think, Judd, though, you can tell when a play caller doesn't have confidence in a certain area. I just don't know that he trusts his running game.
No, but that's on him, though. That's
on him. Yeah. And maybe we could talk about personnel or whatever they're doing, but and I don't know why you would have confidence in your run game based on what you've seen to this point. So that's where I think when they're humming and Cousins was in there, even though the running game wasn't going, it felt like whatever lever he pulled, it was working, right? And whether it's Addison, obviously JJ.
Right.
So I wonder if he kind of feels like, man, how many options does he have right now? Okay, you can rely on Hawkinson, Addison for the most part. You can't really trust the run game. So I wonder if he's kind of feeling like his hands are tied behind his back a little bit.
He probably does, but I feel like he gives the run game. It's weird. If it starts to go south, he abandons it. It feels like,
yeah.
And I just don't think that you can do that. And look, Madison has been a disappointment. But first of all, you trust him, you play him, and I don't think that he understands. Like I would have 2 classes for the 2 most powerful coaches in town. One is PJ, entire game theory, but with Kevin, who I think is good in a lot of areas. With Kevin, I would be like, okay, here's why it's important that you have to allow the run game to at least run its course, for lack of a better term.
That's I remember we used to have that with Childress, and also with when Peterson's there was the whole famine feast, and sometimes you're like, okay, at what point do you say it's not going to work and just abandon it? And at what point do you say, no, you got to be patient, because the more you do it, you're going to see the results. You might have a feast coming. I think that's probably an age-old question for every coach is like, when it's not working, do you stick with it? Or do you just say almost stubbornly stick with it? Or do you say we got to try something else? And I just think O'Connell's probably seen enough proof that, man, we can stick with this and we're not going to get anything out of it. So I don't know that I necessarily fault him for abandoning it, when it's not working, because it almost, a lot of times it just feels like you're running into a brick wall and it's never going to change. Now, I think Chandler's brought something different, a different dimension and some juice. I would like to see more of him.
And they won't play him because they don't trust him.
Yeah, they don't trust him in pass protection.
Yeah.
But I sort of understand what O'Connell's thinking, and that's an area they're going to absolutely have to address this offseason. 100% they're going to have to address this. But
my issue is he has to be involved in fixing it. Like
yes,
you can't. That's not a quasi thing.
It's his offense. It's his offense.
Yeah, exactly. You designed this thing. You know how the car is designed, and you're literally like taking a big portion of the engine out and throwing it to the side. It's like, Kevin, this is on you to fix. Roscoe, your Jaren Hall question. Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys were talking about who starts in Vegas. Likely, I think in your estimation, Nick Mullens. Maybe it's still Dobbs. I would agree that it's probably not Jaren Hall. The last time he started, it was more out of necessity than actually wanting him to be out there. Right. But my question is this: if Nick Mullens plays, or a combination of Nick Mullens and Josh Dobbs, and at some point you're officially eliminated from playoff contention, would it be likely in your estimation that at that point you would see Jaren Hall for whether that's the final game, the final few games, just to see him more in-game action? I'm not saying he's the quarterback of the future, but what I am saying is you now have seen him on the field a little bit, albeit 2 drives. It looked okay. You know what you have in Nick Mullens. You know what you have in Josh Dobbs. I kind of feel like if this team is eliminated from playoff contention at any point prior to the playoffs, I think it's likely that we'll see Jaren Hall again. Is that a wrong take?
No, I don't think they'll be eliminated till the very last week if it is that, because you look around the landscape, it's going to be hard to get eliminated anytime soon.
Really,
but
is.
Yeah, if you're totally out and you're not playing for anything, yeah. I mean, Jaren Hall's a development quarterback. They had no intention of playing him this year. I mean, that was not going to be. He was going to be your number 3 all year, and if you got down that far, it was disastrous. And that's no disrespect to him. He's, what was he, a 5th round pick or whatever he was, and. Mm-hmm. So you're taking him with the idea of this is going to be a red shirt year for him. But if you're out of contention, yeah, why not take a look and see what he can do and see how he handled the whole game. Like I said, the first 2 drives, I mean, they're 2 drives, so you don't want to overreact to anything. But
they're also the scripted drives too.
And they're the scripted drives. So, but I don't know, honestly, with their schedule and the way the rest of the NFC is, they're going to be in it right till the end.
Let's go through seeds. Speaking of that, let's go through seeds 6 through 11 in the National Football Conference to see the ineptitude here.
Should I hide my eyes?
This is yes. Your eyes will bleed much like they did in trying to watch that Monday night game. The number 6 seed is Seattle at 6-5. The Vikings are then the 7th seed for now at 6-6. The Packers are 5-6, a half game back, but they're really more because they lost to the Vikings in Green Bay, and the Vikings can sweep them here, I think, in the penultimate game of the regular season. The Los Angeles Rams are 5-6, but they're behind the Packers in the tiebreaker. The Saints are 5-6, but they're behind the Rams, and the Buccaneers, who somehow beat you, are 4-7, and then from there it's absolute garbage. But the fact is, I'm with Chip here, Ross. I don't think that they're going to fall out. I mean, I think that they will. I don't know they're going to win against the Raiders. I certainly would think it's a close game, but I mean, Cincinnati's going to start Jake Browning you guys. So yeah. I'm with Chip. I think this thing remains tight, and unless Mullens is a disaster, which, by the way, just to be very clear, is possible.
Yeah, he very well
possible. Could be. But yeah, I think this thing goes down to, at least the first Detroit game. If they lose that game and they're falling apart, then perhaps they're done.
What is the win total that you guys think it will take? Because it feels like 9-8. You're almost a lock to get into the playoffs. There's also a path. It could only be 8-9. We're just talking about what you went through, and then think about where the Vikings factor into that, to what you guys said. The Vikings actually have tiebreakers over a fair amount of those teams, other than the Buccaneers, who are still 2 full games behind them.
Yeah, I think 9 would almost surely get you there. I'm going to be interested. Let's just say for hypothetical that Mullens does start. If he plays poorly, Judd, and they lose, you go back to Dobbs at that point. I mean, is this I guess it's hard to know what O'Connell's thinking without seeing a game, but I'm curious to see how this thing unfolds with these quarterbacks. Does he want to stick with one guy? Is it?
I'm guessing he's going to try and stick with. My guess is he's going to try and stick with Nick, and I think we need to quantify poorly. I think the only thing that would get Mullens benched is throwing a bunch of picks and fumbling.
Yeah.
I actually think Dobbs might have kept the job. I think 6 turnovers in 2 games in the season, in which, by the way, you have 24 turnovers. You're third from last in the entire league. And I think you're a -9. I mean, Chip, it's unbelievable. Go look at the losses. You can, without like revisionist history, you can reverse like 3 to 4 of those defeats if you don't fumble.
Yeah. That's I'm sure the maddening thing for O'Connell is, you have to credit the defense some for forcing them, but if you eliminate, you say they have 24, eliminate 8 of those. What does their season look like?
Oh, they're probably in first place, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. You're saying half of them. I mean,
the Philadelphia game. The Philadelphia game. If
that's the one Jefferson's stretching across. Yeah.
Yes, that game. The Chargers game.
For sure, the
Chargers won by 4. And the thing about this too is, if I had come to you in July and said, "Okay, Chipper, it's going to be a weird year. Here's how weird. The Vikings are going to offensively struggle as far as losing the football. Kirk Cousins is going to get hurt, but they're going to remain competitive for a playoff spot because their defense is going to be basically incredible." You would have had me drug tested.
Yeah, that's the thing that we focus so much on the quarterback situation and the turnovers. Goodness, what that defense has done to improve. It's Brian Flores. You hope that they can keep him for a couple of years because he's so good. He's in his scheme and his approach. And I know people were mad that he didn't blitz on the last series and allowed Fields to make a couple throws, but defense was not the problem in that game. I mean, what he's done to help Daniil resurrect his career, and Daniil's going to command a massive salary, as he should. Judd, you got to keep him.
I agree with you, but he might want to follow Flores wherever Flores goes if Flores leaves. But I'm with you now. You see, that's my whole thing is now I'm in the camp. 6 months ago, I would have traded him. But now I'm in the camp of you're going to have to sign JJ because I think you just have to.
Yeah. I'm
keeping Daniil, hopefully on a 3-year contract, but he's now going to be a top 5 paid rush end, which is going to be huge, which is where the Kirk thing becomes, to your point about what's the price. Like, I'm sorry, Daniil, the injuries have scared me, but that guy has come back for the last 2 years, and this year's been unbelievable. And Kirk is coming off an Achilles at the tender age of 36, and he just got hurt. So, like, if you're like, okay, Judd, write one check. Sorry, Kirk plays a more important position, but I'm writing the check to D. Hunter.
Yeah, and the other night, it felt like he made every tackle. He was all over the place. It was unbelievable how good he was. Well, here's the other thing, too, Judd. I got to imagine Darisaw is going to want a contract this offseason, right? Or you're going to have to start you can go the next year, but you're going to have to start the conversation.
You're going to kick the can. I mean, if you did this with Jefferson, you're definitely going to kick the can into 2025.
Yeah. But
yes, he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid.
You're talking about,
I
mean, he's going to get paid like a top 5 left tackle.
Until you draft Penix. Southpaw quarterback, Chipper. Now Brian O'Neill's the blindside protector. Christian Darisaw, you're going to take one. Oh, I'm a tough negotiator. I'm a tough one. I'm no pushover.
Well, if you are Kwesi, I mean, you have 3. If we count Daniil, which I think you have to do. Jefferson, Daniil, Darisaw. 3 premier players at 3 premier positions. How are you going to do that with a quarterback and field a team that has any kind of depth?
You're not. Well, and that's the thing is, if Kirk will take 1 year with his replacement possibly on the roster, come on down, come on back. But he's not going to. I don't think he's going to. So, before we wrap up, Roscoe, why don't you flip the mic back on and give us the Nick Mullens resume, because it is you typed it on the screen and it's atrocious.
Yeah. The Nick Mullens resume will give him this. He has played 17 starts, 5-12, 27 touchdowns, 23 interceptions, and 8 fumbles. Again, the record, whether it's on him or not, 5-12. He hasn't always played for the best teams at the time. So again, you're getting another quote unquote journeyman quarterback who you're just hoping can come in and you can maybe corral him enough to not turn the ball over and do what you're asking him to do. And I think, Chip, at the beginning, you talked about, if it wasn't the turnovers, I think their hope is that they can call plays that Nick Mullens physically won't make turnovers that Josh Dobbs was making.
That's it. I mean, he's obviously been a turnover machine when he's in there. I think it's as much about him knowing the system and having familiarity with it as much as anything else. Because if you're looking for upside, I mean, Dobbs he's going to give you more potential for the turnovers, but he's going to give you more potential for game-changing plays. But I just think, and I could be wrong, but I think O'Connell's going to play it safe here.
The O'Connell thing, in my opinion, that sealed the fate of Dobbs starting against the Raiders was when he went into chapter and verse about Justin Jefferson coming back and about how important it's going to be to find the quarterback who can do the best job with Jefferson. That to me screamed the guy that was behind Kirk can run the most Kirk-like system. And then to Chip's point, you're exactly right. Knows what I want exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I think Jefferson is hey, Dobbs did a great job, but Mullens is a better fit with Justin, right or wrong. I sensed that was he, because he's such a diplomat. Kevin is. Yeah. I sensed that was you trying to say.
Yeah. And it's, we can be mad at Dobbs and the turnovers are, infuriating and unacceptable, but we can't forget, as much as we got caught up in euphoria in the first 2 weeks looked good, he's still new to the system. He's still a backup, maybe the expectations were unfairly, too high based on
he built
euphoria.
Him up.
He did, yeah.
I also think, guys, if you would have said he was essentially going to start 4 games, we'll give him credit for the first one that he appeared in. If you were going to tell me the Vikings bring in Josh Dobbs and they're 2-2 through 4 games, I mean, I don't necessarily think you love the path of how you got there, but I think everybody would have said, okay, well, that still keeps you in the mix. So to a degree, job maybe not well done, but job done at least.
Yeah, and it's, the sky was falling, or at least O'Connell said it wasn't falling internally, but when Cousins that day in Lambeau Field, I don't know the sky's falling now, but the urgency and the tough predicament that they're in with their quarterback situation has now reappeared, because we all got caught up, swept up in Dobbs mania. And now here we are back where, man, they're really in a tough spot with this quarterback situation.
If this team had gone 5-2 without Jefferson and Cousins does not get hurt, we would be dancing in the streets right now.
Yeah.
Like the best receiver, arguably, in the entire league out, and you win 5 games consecutively and lose 2. But here's the one thing that I will say in defense of the Vikings, as far as the backup QB goes. I don't know that they could have done much more. Like Mullens got hurt, but that's the exact type of guy and he's not great, as Roscoe said. Those stats are terrible, but he's the type of guy, he's not Sean Hill, right? Where it's an old man trying to string and he can't move. The Dobbs trade helped get you 2 wins, so that's huge. So I really don't find it. It's unfortunate that a guy in Kirk who never gets hurt got hurt, but the reality is, I don't think that there's like a lot of anger or blame to point here on that. I think they've tried to just muddle through as best they can, and they are currently in a playoff seat.
Well, the thing we have to remember is there's not 32 good starting quarterbacks. There's certainly not 64 good quarterbacks. So it's if you get in a situation, you can be frustrated with how it looks, but you also have to be realistic. Like, okay, this is what were our expectations? Like, what do we think was going to happen? And again, I keep reiterating, but the first 2 weeks, we got caught up in it and it was fun and everything, but maybe it was inevitable that it was going to come back to earth, I think.
What bites you, what you can be mad about is the start. The 1-4 start. That's on them. That's their fault. Hang on to the football. I mean, that's ridiculous. So like that, and it's not his. You certainly don't blame the entire thing or even close on Kirk, but that's with your starting quarterback. That's with Jefferson.
Yeah.
And they should have, unfortunately, they should have more cushion.
Yeah.
Because of that. Yeah. So that actually far more burns me than like this stretch, which again, is just weird. All right, boys, great stuff. Thanks much, Chipper, Roscoe.
Yes, sir.
We'll be back in a week with Tyler Fornes, of course. Check out his stuff, Vikings Wire, where you can also find my columns where once in a while I'm critical of the Vikings. We'll talk to you later.